Hello, friend. Welcome to another episode of Songwriter Theory. Whether you are joining on YouTube or via podcast, I am super stoked to have you here today. And today we're talking about the single best way to become a better songwriter. Here's the thing. You and I may agree or disagree on a lot of things. Chances are, if you've been following me for a while, it's probably because you tend to agree with me on things, right? So you also probably have a high opinion of lyrics, right? Like lyrics are probably very important to you. You probably tend to not get too upset when I harp on how important I think basic music theory knowledge is for songwriting. But if you haven't been following for a while, right, you and I may or may not agree or disagree on many different things when it comes to songwriting. And frankly, the type of music we may like may be radically different. But we're all here for the same reason. Whether this is, the 84th or 5th, whatever it is, podcast that you have listened to from me at Songwriter Theory, or if this is the first video you've ever watched with me as Songwriter Theory, you are here for one reason. And that one reason is that you want to be a better songwriter, right? Like that's the reason you would listen to content from Songwriter Theory. That's the reason that it's probably what you searched, right? When you found this podcast, when you found this YouTube video, the best way to become a better songwriter, right? Like we're all on that same mission. And you're here too because you want to learn tips on how to write better melodies, right? How to make a more interesting chord progression, how to make your lyrics better, right? And tips are great. I love giving tips. A lot of videos are about tips. Even this one is a tip, right? At the end of the day. And that is very important. And I can teach you things like all the music theory that you need to know for songwriting, right? Like I teach the 4 main pillars of music theory that you do need to know to just crush it at songwriting in my free guide on music theory for songwriters, right? Which link in the description below if you want to go pick it up. Totally free. Highly recommend it. It teaches only the 4 bits that you really need to know. But regardless, at the end of the day, there's only one way to really become a better songwriter. And that's to songwrite. And here's the reason that I'm doing this. If you've listened to 20 podcasts of mine in a row without writing a song, turn this off right now. Right now. Don't finish this podcast until come back when you have finished writing a song. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, you can listen to tips from me and learn music theory from me, and I can teach you all the knowledge I know. But if you don't apply it, it's never going to do anything, because this learning should supplement your songwriting. It should not be the beginning and the end of how you become a better songwriter, right? In college, if I sat in on my computer science classes, but I never did the programming projects, I would be completely not ready to become a software developer in the real world, right? But I did the projects, right? I didn't just listen to the theory from the professor. I didn't just teach myself enough to pass the test, right? I actually did the projects, right? And that's where the knowledge becomes practical, right? That's why your math teachers make you do the math over and over and over again. And they don't just teach you like, okay, you add by doing this, and then that's how you do it. Good, sweet, you're good, right? Like that's not how that works. So I'm serious. If you have listened to 20 podcasts or even close, if you think it's anywhere near that and you haven't written a song, I'll happily teach you. I'll be so happy to teach you when you come back. Because at the end of the day, that's what I'm here for, right? I'm teaching you. That's what I enjoy about this, right? Is helping other songwriters, helping people become songwriters. But here's the thing. I don't want you to listen to me and sacrifice actually becoming a songwriter because you're listening to me, right? If you have only a half an hour open in your week, don't spend that half an hour with me. Spend that half an hour songwriting. Now, if you can listen to this podcast or watch this video at work, or for the podcast, not the video, listen to it in the car on your way to work, right? Like, great. I'm happy to be your teacher, of course. Again, that's why I'm here. I'm not telling you, oh, never listen to this podcast again. What I don't want is you to sacrifice actually working on your craft, to sacrifice actually songwriting because you're too busy consuming all of this content on songwriting, right? Like, at some point, you gotta stop pretending like, oh, I just need more knowledge before I start. You don't. You don't. You have enough. Even if this is the first podcast you've ever listened to for songwriting, right? This is literally the first Google search you ever did. You've never written before. You probably have enough to start writing a song. Maybe you won't finish a song, but at least to start writing a song. So even if this is the first thing you've listened to, I ask you, before next week's podcast and video, at least start writing a song. Because the reality is, the people who are the best are doers and learners, right? Not only do they do whatever it is that they're trying to get better at, right? So, for example, for this, the best way that I can become a better podcaster, the best way I can be better in front of a camera is by doing it, right? So if you think, oh, for his, second or third video, whatever this is on this channel where I'm actually showing my face on screen, he's actually pretty decent at like talking to a camera. Well, that's because I have another YouTube channel, the Mount Rushmore of everything, that's out there. So I practiced, right? Like, I practiced doing videos. I practiced the art. It's not really an art, but I've practiced the concept of staring at the lens, right? Like, I know now to like see that as looking in your eyes, right? I don't see your eyes right now, but I know that looking at the lens is my way of looking you in the eye while talking to you, right? And that's what I want, right? I'm your teacher. I want us to have a relationship. So I look you in the eye. I look at the lens. But I didn't just like look up, oh, you should look at the lens. Don't look at like your image of yourself over to the right, right? Like, look into the lens. Like, sure, at some point maybe you learn that, but you learn to actually be good at it, or in this case, comfortable with it, right? Because over the course of this podcast, or in this video, right, it's going to take me maybe half an hour. And I'm going to spend the vast majority of that half an hour speaking while looking into a lens, right? Which is not a natural thing to do. That's not usually what we do. Even when we are talking to people and we look them in the eyes, we often look them in the eye and sort of look off, and look them in the eye and look off, and look them in the eye and, oh no, they're looking me back in the eye. Oh no, let me look off, right? But that came from, again, practice with doing videos, right? And if you've been with me for a while and you think, wow, he's gotten so much better at speaking naturally, half an hour straight, 45 minutes straight, however long the podcast is, and, making sense and putting sentences together and talking naturally since, podcast number 1, you know why that is? Do you think it's because I looked up more videos on how to podcast better? I mean, sure, I did that for sure. And I've, learned different things about how to make better videos with that, and how to, again, firm proponent of learning, but I actually do it, right? Now, if I just did it and didn't look up, like how to get the camera to look better, how to set up the lights or whatever, which I'm not pretending this is great, right? Like, I'm using a webcam right now because my camera's a pain in the butt. But like, I'm going to keep increasing the quality of these videos and the audio and everything by learning, right? But also by doing, because the reality is the best are going to be doers and learners, right? So the best thing you can do is to be writing music right now, to be writing songs right now, and also be listening to this podcast, be watching these videos, and tracking with me every week as I come out with new stuff. Which, by the way, if you're on YouTube, if you're enjoying this content, drop a like, and then subscribe. Click the little notification bell, so that you get notified of these videos every week, because that's when they come out, and I want to keep helping you become a better songwriter. But you need to write. And the reality is that if you had to choose between just watching these videos, between just listening to this podcast and writing, if it's either or, you're going to get better at writing from writing, not from learning, right? And I have nothing to gain from this, right? Like, I'm telling you not to watch my content if it's getting in the way of you songwriting, right? Like, I have nothing to gain from this. The reality is I genuinely want you to become a better songwriter, right? The more great songwriters there are in the world, the more great music there is. The more music there is that helps, a kid going through a rough time in his life. The more songs there are that provide beautiful wedding songs for people, to remember their wedding by, or no matter what the story is, right? Like, the end goal here is more great music in the world, and you, listener, watcher, are going to help that happen. You're going to help there be more great music in the world. But you're not going to if you just listen to this podcast every week, if you just watch these videos every week and you don't write. So if you have to choose, please write. And when you have time, come back to me. And I will happily be your teacher. Because someone who does and learns is going to be better than somebody who just does, right? Like, learning does help you do even better when it's paired with actually doing it. That person will do better than somebody who just does and doesn't bother to do any learning. But that person who just does and doesn't bother to do any learning is still probably almost definitely going to get better than somebody who just learns and doesn't do, right? Like, at some point, you can learn all the theory you want. Until you actually do it, it doesn't matter. So the best way to learn to write music better is to write, and then to supplement your learning via stuff like this, right? Watching these videos, listening to these podcasts. That is the best way. So again, if you are a dedicated listener, been tracking with me for a while, I appreciate you. And because I appreciate you and care about you, I am telling you, if you've listened to 20, certainly, even if you think it's been 10 podcasts that you've listened to, and you still haven't actually done any writing, this podcast is almost over now, so you might as well finish it. But before the next one, don't download the next one, or download it, but don't listen to the next one until you at least start writing. Because the end goal of this is not for you to learn the theory of how to songwrite. The end goal is for you to become a better songwriter. And the only way to do that is by actually doing it. The more you write, the better you're going to get. The more you write, the more the things I say in these podcasts and videos is going to make sense to you, right? You'll relate to it more, and you'll be able to apply your learning to the writing that you do that night, right? You'll listen to this podcast and then apply that tonight, right? So ideally, you're going to listen to this podcast, watch this video, and you are going to say, oh, snap. At first, I was kind of ticked that he tempted me with the best way to become a better songwriter. And I thought I was going to get a non-obvious tip. But then you ended up getting a tip that you thought, oh, that's obvious. But here you still are, because you realize, oh, crap. As obvious as that is, I haven't done it. As obvious as that is, as much as I rolled my eyes when you first said it, here I am realizing I've, binged 30 videos on YouTube about songwriting. Haven't written a song yet in between those 30 videos. I've listened to weeks, months of your podcast, enjoyed it, thought, oh man, I can't wait to songwrite. And yet you can't wait, but yet you haven't done it. So here's my call to you. Do it. Right. The best way to become better, the only way at the end of the day to really become better, involves you writing. The best way is for you to write and for you to learn via stuff like this video, like what I do here at Songwriter Theory, Yes, that will help you. Yes, I have free guides for you to just crush it even more at songwriting. But again, you have to actually songwrite. That's my message for you this week. I hope you take it to heart. I hope you think, okay, literally he has nothing to gain from telling me not to consume his content, not to watch his videos until I actually write a song. That is because I genuinely want you to become a great songwriter. And to do that, you have to songwrite. So I look forward to talking to you once again, once you've done some writing. Because even if you are songwriting, I don't want you to watch next week's content. I don't want you to listen to next week's content unless you did at least a little bit of writing. Find at least a little bit of time for writing. And I cannot wait to see you, to talk to you next time after you have done some writing. Keep at it. Songwriting's worth it. I know it can be rough sometimes. I know sometimes it's just more enjoyable to consume content, right? Because we're a consumer culture. I know sometimes you just want to consume and learn until it becomes really a consumption issue where it's really no better than watching Netflix at some point. Well, a little bit, but at some point you need to apply it because the point of learning is to apply what you've learned. That's the main difference between this podcast and Netflix, right? I'm teaching you something you can apply to something practical. When you watch The Office, that doesn't really, do that. It's very enjoyable for sure, but that's, there's nothing for you to take and apply. But you have to apply. So have a good week. Hopefully I'll see you next week because hopefully in this next week you will take what I said to heart and you will write before we speak again. Because I can't wait to keep helping you on your songwriting journey. Have an awesome week and songwrite.